that the city owns this
Strip.
of land?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I'm just trying to get it all in my,
That's
brain.
accurate.
I think that's it for right now. Thank you,
Okay.
ma'am.
We have Counselor Davis.
Pastor, sir, thank you for coming tonight. I guess you can always come and request and ask.
Yeah.
In looking at what you're projecting on the screen in the parcels, it looks like you already have access of 4. The church owns that land, right? So it looks like you have access to a larger parcel of land. I have to admit to you, I'm not really looking at this as a hardship. I don't view it as a hardship. Matter of fact, the request, do you realize the request that you're making tonight is actually a request to control that city property for 50 years?
And pay for it.
With the
Well,
intent.
with the option to pay for
With the
it.
intent.
Any time within 50 years.
That is correct.
What you're asking, that is a control of a piece of property for 50 years.
Right.
That's correct.
And the hardship, there are 2 things that happen. The 8-foot acquisition across the front of the church would it reduce the parking spaces, and I beg, we have 8 spaces because that's what's out there now. Those spaces that are shown there, they're all gone. Yeah, based on the widening.
If you look at this, there's the sign. The right-of-way stops. The acquisition stops before it gets to the sign or right at the sign.
Well,
This is right-of-way. These are construction easements.
the 8-foot. Sure. Let me show you what we have. Design. Go ahead.
Let me just show you. If you look at the map, what's in yellow is the actual right-of-way that we would
Excuse me,
be.
that is 3, 4, and 5A.
Yeah.
Is that what we're looking at? Just want to make sure I've still
Right.
got it.
That's right. So
And this is Laura,
It's on.
this is Community Reinvestment Manager Laura McCool speaking.
And do make sure your mic is on. We're having trouble hearing you.
So the yellow is actually what the city needs, or what we need for the right-of-way. Where you see in pink and green, that's actually temporary construction easements. So that will revert back to the church once the construction is complete. So the only amount that we need is the actual yellow. If you look at this little square that's right there, that's the sign. So if you look at the aerial photo, the sign is right here. So the construction easement doesn't actually go all the way up to the parking lot. So they will not lose any parking in the front. They may lose the sign, but they've been paid for the sign as part of the right-of-way cost.
What?
The only parking that we can see that will be lost is maybe some parking over on the side, which may be about 1 or 2 parking spaces, but probably only 1.
And Pastor, let me back up.
There's an error with this.
Well, and let me say, the hardship, you would have a hardship from construction, but that's just construction. Everybody's going to have a hardship from construction, but you still have access into the property. But from a parking standpoint, that's what I've meant, with the, I'm just looking at the layout of your property. If you were to pick up an extra space or 2, you've got land in back of the church that you could utilize.
Well, what happens is, what's being omitted is the zoning requires not just the portion that is being lost, but it also requires a planting strip of 7 feet where you can't park in it. So this drawing shows, which is not being mentioned, we've got to have a buffer of 7 feet for planting in addition to that. So that's why we lose it. That's the accurate portrayal of the loss. Okay, you weren't taking that into account. Now,
So, Mr. Rivers, let me just be clear. So, I mean, I sent her out there today, but even if you lose the parking spaces, you have 8 parking spaces in front. So even,
no, we don't.
You just told me you have 8.
No, it's 10, it's 8, as
No,
of now.
we have
As
four.
of now, it's 8.
That's what he's saying
As
now.
of 8.
Yeah, that's my point.
But we'll lose all of
But we're
that.
losing.
I understand. I just wanted to make the point that even if you were, and we can't determine that you're going to lose those 8 at this time, but even if you lose those 8, plus the one on the corner that she's talking about, you'd lose a total of 9 spaces.
Right.
Yeah.
That's correct. And in order to comply with zoning for the church expansion, the parking that we would retain on the front has to be rebuilt in the back. That's the hardship. It's construction costs that is a spin-off as a result of losing land on the front. That's the hardship. And it's dollars. And that's the root of it. When Mr. Arrington was involved, that meeting he's referring to, the purpose of that meeting was to make the case that we have additional hardship here. We're not just selling 8 foot of land. We also have to reconstruct parking spaces that we're going to lose. That was the purpose.
Well, if that's a fact, all I can go on, I don't have that information now, but I'm going off of what the city manager is telling us. If you're losing additional parking spaces, I would think that the city would factor that all into the compensation aspect on the front end.
That was the case that we made. It was not factored in the initial offer of $8,000. And that's when we went to the city and presented to the deputy manager and the zoning director of planning, here's what we're losing. We're not just losing, we're expanding the church, and we're going to have to rebuild these spaces in the back. If we weren't losing the 8 foot, we can keep those spaces.
Well, and let me just say this, because and I've had the city or state buy right away from me on St. Mary's Road at the State Farm office, and I lost, I think, 2 parking spaces. But when they compensated me for the right-of-way that they bought, that meant I needed to go and take that money and do something if I wanted to add parking spaces back, because that's why I got paid. So I don't know that what my thought is that the $8,000 paid for the sign and the right-of-way, and if it was going to take away parking, then you would be compensated for that.
Right.
So what I'd like to do is go back, have staff go back and take a look to see exactly what you did get compensated for. And if for some reason there was a miscalculation or something wasn't considered, I mean, we'll be happy to consider it. And so I don't think that's the case, but we want to be fair. And if that is the case, then we want to make it right.
Sure.
And so I'll have staff go back
Does that-
and
Sure,
and take
that's
a
fair.
look.
Okay.
That's fair.
good.
May I say something?
But go ahead, Jackson.
When you have a top official, like Mr. Arrington, had already stated what he stated, and believe me, he wouldn't be put in that position without y'all being there, and you have 2 witnesses, which is Mr. Fred Cobb and also Mr. Rick Jones, what more do you need? Mr. Rick Jones here today.
So what are you saying, Mr. Arrington
I'm
promised?
saying they heard the comment. They was there.
Well,
They
and I'll-
stated, it was stated it was a hardship. So therefore, what I'm saying,
Oh, he said it was a hardship.
he said it was a
Okay.
hardship, and he
Well,
was going to compensate us for that. Excuse me 1 second. Now, so therefore, if it was already stated by a top official, and you had witnesses that was in the room, and we're not asking to give us anything,
Yeah.
because the proposal was to give us 50 years to pay for it with 1 year with the option to buy.
Yeah, gotcha.
We're not using this property. We're not using this land for profit. We're talking about a church.
Well, let me just say this.
And it's like we want you to help us,
Yeah.
not to hinder us.
Yeah, I understand.
And it seemed like, because this has been ongoing for over 2 years, and we have used the chain of command. I have used the chain of command in every step in doing this here.
Okay.
Now you want more time to delay the project.
No, let me just tell you what I'm going to do. I don't. This is my first time hearing about a hardship and a
But you
proposition.
still have official, Mr. Fred Cobb,
No,
and Mr. Rick Jones, that was present.
Let me
Sir,
say
I'm
something.
going to have to ask you, you're going to have to let people talk,
Yeah.
okay? So-
What I've said, I've shared with you what I'm willing to do, and I will talk to Rick Jones, and I will talk to Fred Cobb personally. And if David Arrington told you that there's a hardship, I don't know tonight if there's a formula for compensating anyone for a hardship. I don't believe there's a formula to compensate for hardship, but if there is a formula, we will do the right thing. I assure you of that.
Yeah, what they were attempting to do at the time when Mr. Arrington left the meeting, he said, I'm going to get my staff, and we need to know, what is this costing you? That's the hardship. To build the additional spaces in the back,
Okay.
let us look at some kind of
Okay.
way in which, that was
Yeah.
the point.
Well, I tell you what, I will take a look, and we are going to, I'm about fairness,
Yeah.
and we are going to do the right thing, and if there's something due, we'll make sure you get it. But then, if there's not anything due, then there won't be anything done. But I can assure you that I will personally deal with it, and I will talk to the parties you said were witnesses to this hardship thing, and we're going to do what's right.
Right, right.
I can assure you that.
And
And I'm not talking about a lengthy period of, I mean, I'll be on this tomorrow.
Okay, fair
And
enough.
so I'm not trying to delay anything, but we'll
Let
be on
me,
it.
let me just close with one small point. We filed a permit set of drawings to start construction almost a year ago, January of this year. And then this issue came up with to replat, and discovered that that piece of land was not owned by the church. So it delayed the process of getting started with construction. I got a call about 3-4 months ago from the planning examiner who was retiring and said, what do I do with these drawings? I said, well, we haven't resolved the matter yet. Can you hold them? Don't throw them away. So there's some degree of, if we can resolve this, as you said, as quickly as we can, so that permit could still be valid, or the set could be valid, would help us a great deal. And if you decide that, there's no money involved, then please consider the lease option. This is something on the table that the church is saying, this would help us out. We'll pay you for it. We're not asking you to give us a gift. It's just that we need time to pay for it.
Okay, let's do this. Counselor Davis is going to close
if I may
out, and then
close.
we've got some others that want to, and y'all are going to talk about this. So if we have counselors that have issues they want the city manager to address with you, let's go ahead and hear them. Counselor
In
Davis.
respect to my comments, I think in the conversation we just had, I think it's best to get with city manager. And work
I agree.
it out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, let's see, comments. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. I first learned about this, I guess, about 2 weeks ago, Mr. Jackson.
Say again, ma'am?
I first learned about this, about 2 weeks ago you told me about this.
Yes, ma'am.
And I told you when it came to council that I would ask the city manager to look into it. And I know you said that we've had it long enough, but we have not had it long enough.
No,
We have
that's-
not been involved in it. So everybody needs to calm down. Let the staff, let the city manager look into it, because I knew that was going to happen. We don't make those decisions at this table without getting adequate information.
Yeah.
And as far as the lease portion, tonight is the first I've heard of the lease portion, because we did not discuss anything about a lease.
Okay, let's do this, Mr. Rivers, let's do this. Clifton, let's do a legal referral on this business about leasing property in the way that's been suggested. I think we do lease from time to time, but the Mayor Pro Tem's asked that question several times, so no need to talk about it now. We'll do it later. Mr. City Manager, also the concept hardship, I agree with you, though I didn't certainly look it up before we came in tonight, is not usually used with compensation computation. It's usually used with variances and relief from ordinances such as zonings and UDO type things. So it could have been, and of course we don't know till you get in to investigate, but as you're investigating, if you would, I guess this is in the form of a referral, make sure what type of hardship, assuming Mr. Arrington was talking about hardship, what type of hardship he was talking about. He could have been talking about a zoning issue or some other setback issue or something that does have a hardship component. Those are the hardships I'm used to, UDO hardships, zoning hardships. So anyway, that's just for your thought as you go and do some further investigation. All right, Councilor Woodson.
Ms. Stacy, can you put back the picture, the one where it shows the church, the plaque?
Exhibit A?
That's it, right there.
This one?
Yes, I'm asking her for a question now, or you yourself. If the red lines is the boundary, am I correct?
Yes.
And in looking in the boundary, it looks like one parking space on where I'm sitting, on the left-hand side is what you're losing. But during your conversation is where I'm getting confused when you were saying you're losing all 8 spaces. If we can't go beyond that red line, how are you losing 8 spaces? I just need to clarify that in my
Yeah,
mind.
I think the spaces where the cars are on the front,
Uh-huh.
those are the spaces that we're losing
How can you?
because of the widening and the setback.
Isn't the widening going up to the red line, not beyond the red line?
And what was not identified was the zoning buffer. An additional 7 feet is going to be lost because of the tree ordinance buffer.
Rick, I need. Rick,
Well,
can
well, I
you-
think what he's saying, Counselor, is if you go to the red line and then there's a setback requirement,
Okay.
not buffer, but setback requirement
Okay.
of so many feet.
Okay.
And you can't plant necessarily or do things in that setback. And so.
It's on this drawing.
And so he's saying they won't be able to do, although the land will be there, because there's a setback requirement,
Right.
and sometimes it's.
Although the setback requirement could be waived if there was a hardship.
Yes.
Okay, so that's
There's a-
where I think you
there's
need
a-
to look into
Yeah.
some of this language being used. The
And so.
setback requirement
and-
is waived. if
Yeah,
there's a
and the
hardship.
mayor is
So
correct.
if you did the setback requirement, that's when he's losing the 8 parking spaces?
Yes.
Okay,
And
that's
so,
what I needed to know.
Even on my own property, and I just use that as an example, when they widened the road, there was a setback requirement, and when they do that setback, you're not supposed to do anything within that distance.
And I understand that, because when my house burned down and I was rebuilding my house, I was told about that, that 8 foot in front of my house, that belongs to the city. I take care of it, but it belongs to the city. And then I was told the boundaries of where I can build my house. If I go, beyond that boundary, then I would have to come before this council to approval. So I understand that. I'm clear on that. But I'm good now. I just didn't understand why he kept saying he would
Right.
lose 8 spaces. But it's because of that.
7 foot. It's a 7 foot,
But that
additional
can-
7
But
feet.
that can be waived, but what the mayor
Well,
is saying.
I'm going to take a look at.
Yeah, we're going to,
we'll take a look at
setbacks
that.
are sometimes waived. So let's,
Okay.
we're going to
I'm
give
just-
this to the city manager, and he's going to look into it. He's going to get with you, and if we need to come back, we'll do it in an expedited fashion. And appreciate y'all coming.
Thank you.
Okay, you should hear
Thank you.
something shortly. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you very much, Council.
All right. We next have Mr. Alex Thompson, who would like to speak to us about the Somerville Road Baptist Church Thanksgiving. Makes me hungry just to think about it.
Makes me hungry as well. Thank you for allowing us to come before you, Mayor Thomason and members of the council. We appreciate this council and what you're doing, and obviously your patience. I'm Virgil Thompson. I'm with WYBU TV. We're the Christian TV station for Phoenix City and Columbus. We're currently involved in a campaign called Serving the City, and that involves you as well, because you're serving the city in what you do, and we appreciate those efforts. In our Serving the City for Thanksgiving coming up, we're going to be serving people who need meals, people who may not have that opportunity to sit down at a Thanksgiving table and enjoy a festive occasion. We're going to be serving a full Thanksgiving meal, a meal with turkey and dressing and cranberry. I want to make you hungry. Turkey, dressing, cranberry sauce, tea, rolls, dessert, homemade desserts. Yeah, stop right there. And so we're doing this as a gift to the community. The partners who are partnering with WYBU, providing the funds, providing the locations, providing advertising, and I appreciate the opportunity to come before you tonight because I want to issue an invite to any of the homeless people in the Columbus community. You may know of some people who may be down on their luck, may be having a hard time. Please invite them to come on November the 25th. That's a Wednesday. That's the day before we traditionally celebrate Thanksgiving. But invite them to come to Somerville Road Baptist Church. That's over by the football stadium in Phoenix City. It's easy to get to. If they're lacking transportation, we will provide through some of our churches, St. James Missionary Baptist Church, Franchise Baptist Church, Liberty Hill Baptist Church. Several churches are going to be providing vans for that morning. From 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., we'll be providing free Thanksgiving meals, okay? Now, they're not takeout meals. These are going to be sit down and dine with us. So they need to come to the location there at Somerville Baptist Church from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., and we'll provide them with a wonderful Thanksgiving meal and an occasion to give thanks for this blessed nation we live in. So I just want to thank you for helping us. If you care to volunteer, if you care to offer any resources, advice, anything, we'll take it. And you can reach us at our phone number, which is 334-298-5917. Yes, ma'am, 334-298-5916. I'm sorry, I said 17, but it's 16. And so we appreciate that. I have a flyer, yes. I can leave it. Yeah, sure can. But we thank you again. Appreciate
Thank you. Councilor Barnes.
And Virgil, could you email that to Mike King here, mking
Okay.
at columbusga.org,
Okay.
so that people know. I think it's a marvelous thing that you all are doing, and to be able to offer the services and for the churches to offer the van service because undoubtedly at every Thanksgiving, there are individuals who circumstantially they're not able to have a meal. So I think that you all are doing a marvelous thing. I think I told you that
Yes.
I can offer my services, so I definitely will be there.
Okay. We're counting on it. Thank you, Pops. Appreciate it.
Thank you very, very much. Appreciate all you do. All right, and thank you for your patience tonight. All right, next we have the city manager's agenda. Mr. Hughley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've got two items and then a couple of updates. The first one is unused sick leave payment that happens this time each year. And
We've got a motion for approval. Is there a second? Okay. All right, there's a second. Is there any discussion related to this item? Okay. You did? Okay. Seeing that there's no question, hold on a second, I had switched over. You can record your votes electronically. All right, and it passes. Thank you. And let's see, Councilor Woodson.
I just have, city manager, excuse me, I just have a question. Wouldn't it be easier if we were to roll over the sick leave instead of cashing it out every year in case someone gets really, really sick? Or how does it work?
well, we have a catastrophic sick leave bank where
Okay.
sick leave that they're going to lose rolls over and goes into a bank. We already have that.
Oh, okay.
And so this is just where they've got 30 days base, and then days beyond their base, they can get paid for a quarter of a day, not to exceed 13 days. But we do have a catastrophic sick leave bank, so they
Okay.
can carry over 30 days plus any unused days into that bank, and some people are able, when they have a serious illness like that, go for some time. And I have an employee that's still on the payroll right now because of this catastrophic sick leave. And I know that you all know that individual, and so they will be getting paid until about February or March of next year.
Okay, just was wondering. Thank you.
All right.
The other item I have is a roadside enhancement and beautification grant. It's $32,000.
Got a motion and second for approval. We have discussion from Councilor Thomas.
Mr. City Manager, I just have a couple of questions about this. One of the pieces of this says that we will have a maintenance of $8,400. Is that an annual
Yes.
amount? And tell me what that encompasses, if you will.
Well, just mowing and caring for the property. We would either do it internally with existing resources, which are very limited, or we will put it on our gateway maintenance agreement, which is what we would intend to do, and that would cost us a little over $8,000.
Currently, that piece of property, we don't have a lot of maintenance of that piece of property at this point, right? I mean, we don't.
Well, we don't have.
That whole, it's sort of like
we do have maintenance on it, but once we do this, you want a higher level of maintenance. Right now, of course, Public Works will go out and they use their equipment and prisoners and care for it, but if you do something special with it, then you're going to want it like your gateway project. You're going to want it maintained in a special way, and so it will require a higher level of maintenance.
And I have I looked at the map or the outline of what is going in there. Will there be any kind of sprinkler system or anything of that nature in there?
I can't answer that question, but it looks like private dollars to the tune of $36,000 will go to for new signs, guardrails, and other things. And so I'll have to see if they intend to put sprinklers. We will not obviously put sprinklers in, but maybe those private sources. The grant is $32,000. They're
Right.
spending $36,000.
And
So-
they're spending an additional 36.
In addition to, yes.
I was just curious about if it is sprinkled, who pays that water bill? The other question that I have, I drove down the other day to take a look at it after I saw this on the agenda, and I'll tell you, I drive by there all the time and did not realize, quite frankly, that there was that piece of road still down there, because you can't see it that well from, if you're paying attention to Second Avenue, you can't see that road. One of my questions, though, is this is right on the edge of what we have been talking about as the new city-village.
Right. I asked the same question before you. I think I know where you're going.
How does it fit?
Well, and I asked staff that question. I told them the last thing we would want to do is spend $32,000 in a grant and someone else spend $36,000, and then you come along and we do a streetscape on Second Avenue and we got to tear it all up. And so the report that I got back is that that has been considered, and it will not. That will not happen. Is what has come back to me, because I had them check with the city village people just to make sure.
Well, I know, too, that as I recall, the city-village master plan is from like 18th Street north, and this is on the other, on the south side
That's
of
right.
18th Street.
That's right.
And one of the pictures that I saw here has an Uptown Columbus sign, and so I was just wondering how that was, how that fit in with the new master plan that City Village is doing, if they're going to have a entryway, to City Village.
Well, and of course, our representative on the DOT, this is a project that he has a lot of interest in as well, but I've had them check.
Good.
That was the first question I asked, and I've gotten back the response. It's okay.
Good. Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah. Mr. City Manager, I thought it was a state grant.
It is a state grant.
Oh, okay. I thought
The
you said private
32,000.
funds.
No, there's 32,000
Oh,
state
okay.
grant, and then 36,000
Gotcha.
private dollars
Okay,
will go.
gotcha.
It's over a $50,000 project.
Great. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. All right. Tiny, did we have a motion and a second? Okay. All right. We will cue it for vote. Go ahead and record your votes electronically. All right, and it does pass.
And Madam Mayor, I've got a few updates. We've been delaying a number of these updates, but we need to talk about the Aquatic Center tonight, and then a very short Cooper Creek tennis update, very short, and then we got a radio maintenance update that Engineer Director Donna Newman is going to come with.
Okay.
But I've got Dr. Worsley for the Aquatic Center update.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to talk about this evening the Columbus Aquatic Center, as the city manager said. I see that you're getting your presentation, so I'll just pause for 1 second till everyone has one. Okay. On the agenda, very quickly for this update this evening, I just want to quickly talk about the RP process, the third-party management results, where we are from where we started, talk a little bit about the Company A, Parks and Recreation in a comparison state, as was asked once before when I came to present, and then open the floor for questions that you might have that we can answer for you on this evening. Regarding the RFP process in general, it did, as all our RFPs go out and hit the streets and went so the public could view it and companies could bid. The Georgia Procurement Registry on February the 18th of 2015. This process, of course, has been advertised, open and evaluated at this point from where we are today. Proposals were received back to the purchasing office on March the 20th of 2015. A little bit about the third-party management results based on the information that was put together by the committee members and the purchasing department. 7 companies participated or submitted their proposals, if you will, to operate the Columbus Aquatic Center. The committee performed their initial evaluation and then shortlisted this group of 7 to the 2 highest ranking vendors, Company A we'll call and Company B we'll call, who were invited to then make oral presentations before and be interviewed by the purchasing committee. Both companies presented to the RP committee on August the 19th, 2015. After the presentations, the RP committee performed a final vote, and Company A, we'll call it, was the unanimous choice of the committee. The purchasing division of the finance department managed, and it's very important that you know, they manage and direct all meetings and communications with all companies involved in the RFP process to make sure that things were done fairly. Further, as it goes with the committee, deemed that the Company A was the most responsive of the 7 that submitted their information, of the 2 that were interviewed and presented, based on for some of the following reasons. Company A has been in business since 1992 with 23 years of experience in the pool management services. Company A displayed an understanding of expected operations and the approach that the Columbus Aquatic Center has. Company A guarantees staff availability and provides a plan for staff regarding turnover. An additional organization chart that was provided was clear and concise. And lastly, they also provide a realistic cost proposal that seems to be in the best interest for the proposed of the costs. Let's talk a little bit at this time about what some of those numbers look like in regards to the third-party management company as it results to Company A. This particular model here is the 89 hours, which is the current operational model for what we're currently operating at the Columbus Aquatic Center as of today. As you can see, there are various descriptions on the left-hand column, and then, of course, associated costs going down the right-hand column. That gives you a little bit more idea where the dollars in the particular proposal are being spent. Largely, you can see that the personnel, full-time and part-time, wages and salaries take up the bulk of that particular budget. and then, of course, along with some of the other items such as accounting and other issues like marketing and insurance. It's important to also note that the utilities are paid by the Parks and Recreation Department regardless of the model that we might look at this evening, and those utilities are $170,000. When you look at the cost of what it would take for Company A to operate the facility as it is today, the total cost is $1,267,000 estimated at this point. And the Company A is projecting a revenue projection of about $525,000. Okay. Now let's take a look, keeping in mind with Company A, I should also point out that Company A provides 3 models, an 89-hour model and a 56-hour model, and then we'll talk lastly about their 45-hour model. This is the 56-hour model for Company A. As you can also see, the descriptions are down the left-hand side and the costs associated are down the right-hand side. And again, likewise, the bulk of the costs will be associated with personnel management, salaries, and hourly wage. And then again, looking at things like chemicals, marketing, overhead profits, margins, and extra chemicals perhaps is another large expense in the other column, as you can see here. And again, utilities are at the $170,000, which is also paid by Columbus Parks and Recreation. You look at what the total cost will be for a 56-hour model. If that is something that was of interest, we're looking at about $1 million for $1,048,877, with a revenue projection of $343,000. That is the 56 hours model. Now let's take a look at the 45 hours model. Personnel, again, is the bulk of the costs. But as you can see, that the costs associated with the hours, as the hours go down, the costs go down. But of course, also the amenities and the programs that will be associated with each model would decrease according to what you could afford based on the number of hours that you're open and what we could pay for. It's also important here to look that utilities are, again, paid by Columbus Parks and Recreation, but I do want to point out some things with the 45 model, things that the Company A will not be providing. They will not be providing their own liability insurance based on this model. They will not be providing any marketing with this 45-hour model, and they will not be providing any additional lifeguards for any special events that we might have, such as swim meets, for example. So that is something to consider as we talk about the 45-hour model. The cost for that associated model is $820,000 with revenue projections at $219,000. Now that we've looked at Company A alone, let's take a look side by side and let you see what Company A looks like, again, with Parks and Recreation, and point out some features that you might be interested in here. Company A, again, is on the left-hand side, associated costs in the middle. Parks and Recreation is on the right-hand column with the associated costs at the far right. Here you will see that for Company A, again, the bulk of the funds are in the personnel and as well as in Parks and Recreation. The differentiate ideal here is based on Company A, they've put a lot of their funding in full-time management staff. Parks and Recreation, as it contrasts, also have full-time management staff, but have taken more of those monies and put into the part-time staff, wage staff, that we feel that would be the better way to utilize the bulk of the money in comparison as you see it here. But likewise, much is very similar. What would be needed in order to operate a 89-hour, this is the comparison for the 89-hour aquatic facility. And bottom line, going down to the bottom, utilities, again, will be the same as I mentioned earlier. But you can see at the very bottom for the total cost, the costs are very comparable, as you would see for example, Company A comes in, as I mentioned earlier, the 1.267, and then Columbus Parks and Recreation comes in just below at 1.242. So again, numbers are very comparable in terms of what it will cost to operate a facility at 89 hours per week.
Hold on, let
Certainly.
me get it up there. Hold on. There you go.
Dr. Worsley, would you explain for me a little bit about why there is such a dramatic difference in the revenue projection between the Company A and Parks and Rec?
Okay. I can only tell you this, that the Company A provides the revenue projection at 525. Based on our operation of the facility, we do think that that is an overprojection. Based on our $250,000 projection from Parks and Recreation standpoint, it's based on the information that we have, the data that supports the operations we currently have here at our facility, based on what we think that we can do. Given if we did have the facility, not saying we want the facility, but if we did have it, that is something out of the gate we don't want to over-project and then come in short.
I guess on the previous slide where we were maintaining our current level, that's a 270.
Which slide? I'm sorry.
That one, yeah, a $275,000 difference in the revenue projection. That just seems to be.
Well, and Madam Mayor, and to you, Councilor Thomas, I think the one thing that we know to be true is that the previous company, I think the revenues were projected at one thing and they came in at another. And they've been over there long enough now to see the trend in revenue based on what's going on, and someone from the outside can come in and project revenue and they come in short and we got to pay for it.
Well, that's part of my concern,
Yeah.
is that they're projecting $525,000
Right.
in revenue, and we're projecting $250,000 in revenue, and it's a little. I could understand some difference in the revenue projections. $275,000 just seems like a lot of difference. And I don't know if we are dramatically underestimating or if we've hit it right on the nose and they are dramatically overestimating. That's just a concern that I have. And I don't know that there's an answer to that question.
Right.
But that it is a concern that there's that big a and it moves on in all of them. There's a wide discrepancy between the two. And I don't want us to enter into another contract with an outside provider that says they're going to have $525,000 in revenue, and they come up at $250,000. You understand my
I absolutely
dilemma?
understand, and if we were operating it internally and we underproject and overperform, it's not necessarily a bad thing, as you would imagine, because that money.
We'd give you an attaboy.
Well, you would,
Not a raise, but an
but
attaboy.
two, the money would then revert back to the general fund.
Sure.
And we'd use it for next year, and then we'd get closer to next year because we have something. We have something to guide us. I mean, we would know after the first year of operating it internally, if we said 250 and we did 500, then next year it would likely be closer to 500.
Right.
But out the gate, based on trend, I think staff is just trying to get it right.
Well, my concern is then if we know what our pattern has been, are we putting too much faith in Company A's projection?
Well, again, we're presenting the information that they provided us. They came out to be the number one company based on what the committee recommendation.
Sure.
And so that's what I
understand.
wanted to present to you this evening. You asked the question about the projection. Yes, we think that projection is too high, the $525,000, based on the information that they provided to us.
Thank you, Dr. Worsley.
Yes.
We've got counselors all lined up.
Okay.
You got a bunch of questions. Dr. Worsley, you mentioned something, I just want to make sure I heard you correctly, about the prior, maybe it was the city manager, the prior vendor. How much did they overestimate their revenue, if you recall?
They projected a little over 600,000, and we took in 496.
Okay, if you can repeat that.
The finance manager
That's my point.
has informed me they projected the previous company about 600 plus thousand, and they took in about 196,000.
So they were 400,000 over their estimates. Okay.
That's right.
All right. That clears up that. So what's council's pleasure? You want to start with questions, or would you like, have you finished, Mr. Worsley?
I haven't finished.
Okay. Why don't you finish, and then let's start, because we got everybody lit up.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, let's go. I was at the 56th model. Again, the models are very, very similar, but as you see, the trend is the costs are going down, but the levels of services are going down as well. So we're focused on the bottom line is that the utilities are going to be 170, regardless of which model we're looking at. And as I noted, for the total cost for Company A and the 56-hour model, you're looking at $1,048,877 versus the city with Parks and Recreation, we're looking at $1,025,500. The revenue projections for the Company A, $343,000 versus $196,000 with the city. The 45-hour model, again, goes down even further in terms of cost, but as I mentioned earlier with Company A, what they provide is even less. You're looking down here at the utilities, again, it's the same, the 170, and the total cost is $820,000. Their projections for revenue is $219,500. In Parks and Recreation, we're looking at $825,800 with a revenue projection of $156,000 in terms of the revenue. So that is the gist of what we're looking at in terms of the different models. The three, as I mentioned, to recap, the 89 hours, 56 hours, 45 hours. And this time, I think you have some questions. We can address some of those.
But I'd like for you to share with them what our budget, what's the budget?
Absolutely.
And so.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The budget that we currently have for the Aquatic Center is $655,000. $800. I got it correct. $655,800. So the bottom line is, what can we afford with the money that we have? And that's not the 89 or the 56. Based on the money that we currently have in our checking account, if you will, is based on the 45-hour model, where it comes in at $825,000 because we're already covered for the utility. So you add that to the 655, you'll get the 825. So that's where we are in terms of what our budget currently is for Parks and Recreation.
So then, based on what we budget with utilities annually, it comes to about $825,000.
That's correct.
And so, based on that, we could only afford
the
45-hour
exactly.
model unless we decide to take from somewhere else and put with the Aquatic Center. And so it's either. And so that's the decision that really has to be made. We can only afford the 45-hour model. We're currently providing 89 hours only because you've got your assistant director over there.
That's right.
And you've got your finance
manager over
there. And you've got people over there working it in the interim.
That should be doing other jobs.
That have other jobs. And so they're working out of their category and carrying their load for their other jobs.
That's correct.
So we wanted, and Dr. Worsley can answer your questions, but those are the real numbers, and that's the budget, and we got to figure out what you would like to see, because if we're going to bring something back for you to vote on, we would have to bring back something that we can afford based on the money that's in the budget, unless we're able to go out and cut off some other things to increase the budget for the Aquatic Center to get it back up to 56 hours or up to the 89 hours that it's currently open. So, we've got a dilemma that we're dealing with, and we wanted you to be aware before we bring something forward for your vote or consideration.
Okay, we got counselors, so let's go. Mayor Pro Tem.
Mr. Worsley.
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Worsley, when you bring the information back to us, can you bring back, if we reduce it to 56 hours, what we will have to cut out?
What would we have to cut out as far as?
At the Aquatic Center.
At the Aquatic Center?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right.
It'll primarily be
Well,
operational.
It's primarily
hours.
operational hours.
But we'll
still
bring it
provide the
back.
level of service, but operational hours we would not have. Currently, we're working in the last 7 months in the interim perspective. We don't have the programs there that we should if we were operating in full capacity because, one, we don't have the staff to do it. The only program that we've had since we've been from an interim perspective has been the swimming lessons that we've had this summer and concluded. But as far as other programs, we don't have because we're in there in the interim. So we can't start programs on the whim and not knowing who's going to operate the facility. And so we get people that are wanting programs, and of course at this time we have to delay those programs until we know surely where we're going to be at with the facility.
All right. Let's see, next we have Councilor Barnes.
Councilor Thomas, to your question that I think that the city manager answered, how long, Dr. Worsley, has your staff been operating?
April 28th, if I'm not mistaken. April 28th, so about 7 months now.
So I think that they will have a more realistic view of what in 7 months of what the revenue projections would be. So that's to answer that. And let me make a comment. I think I sent to the mayor, city manager, deputy city manager, a letter that I received from a gentleman who uses that facility pretty much every day. And there has not been one complaint following up on the previous complaints when another organization had it from your staff. In fact, what I have received from the community are just glowing comments. And I've made it a point to go there a number of times because I'm going to tell you what really makes me feel good is that I see individuals whom in the community I know very well who are somewhat affluent. And I see individuals that will be going there, a mother with 5 or 6 youngsters, and they enjoy the facility. It's one of the facilities that I see that is available to the entire Columbus community, and it's used. And I know that during that time, there have been 2 employees of yours that who have been your pillars as far as operating.
Absolutely.
And I've also been there times when there's been a glitch, and you've had one of the 2 pillars that are sitting behind you that responded. In fact, I was there one time with something referenced a pump.
Mm-hmm.
There was not a break. That side of that pool was closed. You had, I think, 3 or 4 grades of the youngsters there with swimming lessons and other individuals, a couple of seniors I saw there. There was not an interruption. It was taken care of. And I think I've gone on record before. You know, when you have ownership on something, it's just a natural tendency that you're going to, and I hate to generalize, but this is my own self speaking, that you have ownership. You're going to make sure that things run really smoothly, and you give a projection to the community that things are well. I really appreciate the job that your staff has done. And I've said even before this, I'm the one that referred to this, because I just wanted to find out what it would cost. It's obvious that we have to do something. And it pretty much looks now that reduced hours is the way to slice this piece of loaf of bread, you know, to make things happen. But I just want to commend you and your staff on a fine job. You got the letter.
Yes.
And there were other comments that were made, and it just makes me feel good that we do have an amenity. We have others, but one that I see that really is a jewel, I think, in the community. We've had our bumps and whatever, but that's a part of life.
Sure.
It's coming up with a plan that we can work, but we can present that amenity to the community on a consistent basis.
Sure. And thank you so much.
All right, we have Councilor Davis.
Mr. City Manager, since we've been dealing with this matter, we have not seen a detailed plan on sales and marketing. I think that what would be important here is that whether it's Company A, B, Parks and Recs, this council needs a detailed sales and marketing plan for the facility. I just think that we need to start studying that and exploring it and try to grasp that aspect of the facility. Dr. Worsley Now, I want you to help me understand, and if you want to put it in writing when you come back, that's okay with me. But I'm looking at the numbers here, and I'm just kind of trying to figure out the variances in the hours open versus total cost, and just follow me a minute in what I'm saying here. You've got a 45-hour model, a 56-hour model, and a 89-hour model. And you've got a variance between 11 hours between one model and 36 hours, if I've got my math right, on the other model. But then I look at the total cost, and you have a variance about $200,000 on the operations side, and I'm just trying to figure that aspect from 11 hours to 36 hours, but still a $200,000 variance in the cost, in the total cost. I'm trying to understand that. I don't know where that adds up into the numbers. I'm thinking that possibly maybe on the labor side.
You're correct. When we start looking at the numbers and how we get the cost, we look at in terms of the numbers first, the people that's going to take to run the facility, and what can we buy for X number of hours. And that is, with personnel, that is how we equate to what we get to how we get to the number of hours. I would like to invite Becky Glisson to also come up here to share a little bit more about, as we come up with our hours of operation, chat a little bit with us about
Well, I
that
would,
as well.
and let me just say this again, when I talk about the 36-hour difference between 56 and 89, I'm thinking that would be long-term, so it tells me that that's more on the weekend, but I would think that we would have to, I'm not sure, but I'm just thinking that there may be some overtime involved in here somewhere, but it's still...
We have a schedule in terms of what the hours will look like for the facility as far as
Right,
operations.
but it's still about a $200,000 variance for 25, did I get that right, 25?
I'll have to get
Additional
back in
hours?
my office to look back in terms of look at the numbers in detail, but all I can tell you at this point is the number of people it takes to run the facility. You only have, let's just see, for example, you have $100. I can hire 5 people. Well, for those 5 people, they make them work 7 days a week, 5 days a week. In that example, well, I can only work them for 40 hours. So that's going to dictate how many hours I can work based on the number, what my budget will allow me to operate at. That's why we're decreasing in terms of hours. But I understand what you're saying in terms of variance, but that is my answer to you, is based on the number of people we have working at the facility.
Well, and I'll look at this a little bit more, but if you want to have one of your staff members speak to the matter, I'm okay with that. Or if they can add some light to it.
It's estimated based on actual usage that we've already done, and it all is in personnel. Because if you reduce the hours, you don't need as many lifeguards, as many custodial, as many front desk crew, or any of that. So it's based on, all my numbers are based on actual usage of what we do now at 89 hours a week. I guess the easiest way to explain it is if we have 25 lifeguards at $9 an hour for 29 hours, it's going to get us this. If we move it down to 45 hours, we don't need them. We don't need 25 lifeguards for 29 hours a week. Does that make sense?
Well, it doesn't answer the variant, but it just kind of adds some pieces to it.
Well, what we can do, what I'd ask that you do is just show the difference in the cost from 89 to 56, where the difference, do another column and show where, well, 2 more columns, and basically you're going to have an 89-hour column, a 56-hour column, and a 45-hour column on one spreadsheet, and you're going to have cost in certain categories, and it'll show the difference it'll show where the money, where the expenses are or not from 89 to 56 to 45 hours.
Sure.
I think we can probably create a spreadsheet that would show that.
You know what I'm asking, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that spreadsheet, and it'll show it, and I'll get Deputy City Manager to work with you on it.
Sure. I guess I'm looking at it, just tells me that it's somewhat costs less to run it for longer than a shorter amount of time, and that's where I'm trying to add it all up.
Yeah. Well, I based on what I've described, if we had a spreadsheet that shows all of the expenses in one, and down the left-hand margin, and then we show 89 hours and what those expenses are, and then 56 hours and the difference in each of those, and I think that'll tell you where, where the expenses are and where the expenses have been lowered based on lower number of operating hours.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Worsley. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, we have Counselor Thomas.
Dr. Worsley, the swim teams from the various high schools in town
Yes, ma'am.
use our facility